Well, fam. We are back in action, back in recording a podcast for the Unfiltered Entrepreneur. I'm so happy to be podcasting again. I had a whole episode that I recorded and scrapped. I shared a little bit about that in the Doers broadcast channel on Instagram about why I scrapped that, but I feel like it's better to kind of jump onto the podcast train again with a little bit of an insight into what I'm building without giving everything away, especially because we're still a little bit of time away from it being live. And also some tips to kind of just like expand your worldview. We've always used the Unfiltered Entrepreneur as a place to do kind of like free trainings. But now that the Doers membership has a completely free tier available to you, you could join right now. There's a link in the show notes. There's tons of places for us to do free trainings, right? We're bringing back our blog in a big way. We have the Cocky blog if you're interested in investing. We have the Doers membership, right? We have all of these really incredible free tools to learn and to have resources. And I want to use this podcast a bit more for empowering you, for giving you confidence, for helping you take up space, because I think that what I want to see more of is you. I think one thing that I learned from my summer of taking a break from work is that the faceless brand thing doesn't work, and I think it was an interesting attempt. I think it was an interesting trial. I think it was an interesting experiment. Always be doing that, always be experimenting. I'm someone who doesn't believe in an experiment unless you are really giving it some time. And I gave it 3 months and, the team and I worked together to have content that was going out that was faceless, but still massively impactful. And the content didn't work. And that's not to say that it was bad content. If you scroll through our content, you're going to see very helpful pieces of content there. But it didn't work in terms of the algorithm. And that is not a personal affront. That isn't to say that we did anything bad or that we did anything wrong. So if you're in that position where your content just isn't hitting, it isn't personal. It's not about you. It's about how the machine works, right? And what we know works is showing a face, and especially an impassioned, powerful, opinion, a point of view. And I'm someone who has that. And so podcasting just helps me have a medium in connecting with you because I don't think that I'm ready to be done there. I think that I have a bit of an insecurity that I want the doers to be bigger than me. I don't want you to think that this is like Ashli Pollard's space, but I also know that someone has to give a shit here, right? And I care the most. I care so much about the women in this space and what we're building. So it only makes sense that I'm the face here for the next few years. And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy we did this faceless test. It didn't work. We're pivoting back into being present. And honestly, nothing makes me more excited. I'm actually really glad it didn't work because I get to be back doing the things that I love to do, which is talking to you, empowering you, helping women make money. That's everything that we do here at the Doers. So if you're looking for a space where you want to feel empowered and you want to feel like you're a part of something bigger than you, and you want to see those big wins for yourself, consider becoming a free member of the Doers. Our Access Pass tier gives you some really good intro access to our membership where you never have to pay us a dime. So would love to see you as a part of that. Now, I titled today's episode, How to Be Delusional. And I kind of want to give you a little bit of an inside look into what I'm building here at the Doers and what I want for this space. And also give you some tips for how you can be delusional as well and think bigger and think outside of yourself. I also want to preface this by saying I am someone who has always wanted some kind of an empire. And when I say an empire, I don't mean like a Tony Robbins cult vibe, right? I want there to be a shared space of values, but where you can pick and choose and have different pieces of media that support you. And let me dive into what I mean by that. A year and a half ago, I had a meeting in New York in February, and I posted to my account, remember February 11th, and it's because that's when everything changed. In this meeting, I met with somebody who really helped me transform and see the vision and the future of our company. And this is the power of working with a coach because it completely shifted my vision and my view. I've never worked with a coach before. This person wasn't necessarily a coach. It also wasn't a paid session. It was someone who I really view as a valuable mentor in my life who I worked with in the corporate journey that I had in the fashion industry. And so I was meeting with her and I was sharing all of the dreams that I had for my business. And she said, Ashli, like, if you're gonna go for it, go for it. Make it much bigger than this. You're someone who has a vision and who inspires people and who has a voice. So what if you did more with this? And so this is when I can start sharing a little bit about the vision for the doers and where I want to go. And then I want to give you some tips for how you can be delusional as well. Things that I learned from her, but also that I've learned along the way. Now, when we rebranded the doers into this kind of like playful, messy space, that served us for a few reasons, but it was kind of a reaction to the past branding, because our past branding was this woman in a buttoned up suit. And I am that girl. I love a blazer. I'm wearing a blazer right now if you're watching this on YouTube. But I also very much push like do it messy. And what you may not see is that I'm wearing a blazer right now, sure, but I'm also wearing my Adidas track pants, right? Like it's high-low for me over here. And so what I realized a year and a half ago is that this branding was going to do something for us, but it wouldn't be our forever home. And so we started rebranding about a year and a half ago, but not in the way that you might think. What we started doing was building the entire ecosystem that we want to grow into over the next 5 to 10 years and building out strategies for each of those ecosystems. What trigger point would have to happen for us to start this? What needs to be in place? Who needs to be hired? What do I need to learn? What don't I know? And what type of financial infrastructure needs to be in place in order for it to be successful? For lack of a better word, we needed to see the big picture and redirect it back to where we are, right? We reverse engineered this massive plan into where we are today. And that is why when we rebranded, we changed our handle to the Doers World. And the Doers World will occupy multitudes of spaces that I'm so excited about. First and foremost, we'll have the Doers podcasts. Obviously, we have, the Unfiltered Entrepreneur, which you're listening to right now. We also will have, depending on when you're listening to this, The Daily Hype, which is my personal podcast. That's where I take a walk and chat for 20 minutes, just about anything in the world. We have Cocky, where I'm sharing news updates, marketing updates, that type of thing, just keeping women informed and smart so that you have something to talk about at the water cooler or in business meetings. But we also have a few podcasts on the back burner that have not come out yet that we're very excited about. We have a sports podcast so that you can feel like you're up to speed in the sports space, a reality TV podcast. There's a few different ways that we can go with this. That will not trigger on until we have a sponsor for the podcast. We're shopping that around, we're taking our time, but the Doers podcast will probably be the first iteration you'll see outside of like the Doers being a membership. You'll also see the Doers shop. And the Doers shop won't necessarily be products that we're selling, although it will be. We do have some products in the works, some actually like sick products that no one is doing in the market. Like I can't believe that no one has ever come up with one of the ideas that I have. And with the Doers shop, not only will we be, recommending products that we've made, but also products that are going to support your life. These might also be products that you can invest in. It could be products that you could buy from Amazon on the cheap. It could also be female-founded brands that we want you to know about. The most important one, in my opinion, is the Doers Foundation. This is going to take the biggest amount of lift on my end, in my opinion, because it's where I know the least. And why I want to tell you about this is because I know nothing about working with a 501c3 or being a 501c3. I have a lot to learn, a lot to gain in this space. And I'm excited about that. I like to learn. I like to be new. I like to be a novice. And we're trying to find advisors and people who are going to be guiding that journey. And I'm excited about that. The conversations that we're having are super strong. We're likely going to partner with the foundation instead of start our own because there are so many great ones already that exist. And I want to uplift those, right? What we're hoping for the Doers Foundation is that we can actually support women exiting domestic violence situations. We want to show them that they can independently make money, that they can support their kids, and that they can get away. This work is very important to me, and I want to get you guys involved. What we're hoping for the Doers Foundation is that you will be able to volunteer your services to teach someone how to do that set of skills, or to volunteer your time in order to help that person get up and running. And so we as a community will be able to volunteer to support these women and have their back and see that through, which I'm so excited about. That is the one that I have the biggest learning curve. That one will probably take the longest of everything I've mentioned so far. but I'm hoping that that will be a big part of the legacy of the women here at the Doers. We have the Doers Invest, where we will be, as a community, investing in female-led brands. We will also be giving you deal flow and opportunities to invest independently into different things that are exciting to you. We'll also have someone who's a wealth advisor sharing information on investing, day trading, etc., etc. We have a few more that we haven't mentioned. I'm teetering on the edge of the Doers food, which would just be more of a personal passion, but I don't know if you guys need that. You have to let me know. But we see this as a space that helps the ambitious woman. We are strictly here to support women, and whatever that may look like, we are here. There have definitely been people in my life that are like, that's a pretty big undertaking. Are you ready for that? And I say, if it doesn't work, why do I care? You know what I mean? Like, what happens to me? Do I go to hell? No. I think that attempting and trying to do something for the betterment of people is never bad, right? Step one in being delusional is understand that nothing really bad happens if it doesn't work unless you're doing illegal things. You know what I mean? Be a kind person and you'll be fine. Like, getting over that hump sometimes is really hard. And I get that, right? I completely get that if you're wanting to do something, there's this fear of like, but what if it doesn't work? Or what if it doesn't pan out the way that I need it to? Or what if I get judged? Or what if someone makes fun of me? All a litany of things. I get that, right? But you have to live in the space of what if it works? Here's where we may differ. You may not want an empire. You may simply want to just have a good salary and live your life. And I support that wholeheartedly. I am so here for that. For a lot of us here in the Doers, we subscribe to the idea that selling a business is a pathway to wealth. And whether you're selling a car wash or selling an agency, it is a very good tool to financial independence. And everything I do is about women's financial independence, period. So step one in being delusional is understand that if you fail, nothing happens. And if you lose someone, you didn't have them in the first place. And if you lose followers, who cares? You don't answer to followers at the end of this whole thing called life, okay? You know, I can go to bed at night perfectly fine if I made a mistake. I can own up to it and be like, man, that's embarrassing. Or, oh, I wish I knew that. Or I wish I knew better. Or I have to fix this. I can go to sleep at night knowing that I'm saying those things if I happen to make a mistake, which I make plenty of, by the way. I cannot go to sleep at night thinking that I wanted something and I could have just tried one more thing. When you think about that big thing that you want, that delusional thing, it could be moving out of the city that you're in. It could be making $100,000. It could be making more than your husband so he can retire. It could be having $1 million in savings for your kids. It could be building an asset like a business and selling it for $400,000, $1 million, $5 million. Those things sound crazy, but you have to be thinking about what if it works, and you have to choose that every single morning. Which leads me to my second way to be delusional. And my second way to be delusional, what is your biggest possible, I would be blown away if this happened? For instance, if you're like, I want to get out of debt and pay myself $100,000 a year. I want you to think of that biggest possible plan and opportunity for you. And then I want you to make that your smallest goal. And that's how you start on the road of delusion, okay? You say that big, impossible, expansive, idea that I have. What if that was the smallest goal on a list of things that I want for myself? What if that is a fraction of what I could have? What if there's far more than that at my fingertips available to me? Start at this thing could change my life. This is where safety resides. This is what makes me feel secure in my life. This is what makes me feel good, to feel happy, to feel like I experienced a win I deserve. And then make that the baseline, not the big win. Make that it's happening. We're going. We'll figure it out. Any path there, right? Maybe not any, right? There's some nasty path forward. Make that your smallest goal, and it will open up a world of possibilities. Well, I guess it kind of would be cool if I got to talk about it on the Tonight Show. What if that was a small goal for you? And so these are just examples, but I want you to really get into the mindset of like that big thing. What if that was your smallest goal? And then what would be a big goal on top of that? What would be steps of big goals? And what if that did happen and it worked? And then what if that next thing happened and it worked? What would that be? And it doesn't have to be about professionalism or ambition. It could be about family. It could be about how you give to your family. It could be about health. It could be about savings. But I want you to really think about your goals from that perspective. Which brings me to my next point. In being delusional, which I firmly believe I am, let's be honest, I want you to think about the micro and the macro. Now, the macro is basically like what happens over the next 20 years, what happens over the next 10 years. If you want to go a little bit smaller, you could say 5 years, but to me, that's still pretty micro. A lot changes in 5 years, but some small things happen in 5 years too. So let's talk about the next 10, 20 years, right? Where do you want to go? What do you want to happen? For me, I have a few different goals for the doers. I would love to see 100,000 women win from this space. That's always been a big conversation behind the scenes internally with my team. 100,000 hands, 100,000 hands, 100,000 hands. And that's why we focus so much on affordable or free, is because I think that impact cannot be expensive, right? And I want to be supporting women who are not in these massive cities. I want to be supporting women who are in rural counties. I want to be supporting women who are leaving bad situations and starting from scratch. I want to be supporting women who grew up with no example of ambitious success. And I want to say, it is possible. You can do it. I don't care if you didn't go to college. I don't care if you're massively in debt. I don't care. We have way too many free resources for you to change your life, and we are here for you. We have a community of women who care about you. You're not alone. You've got this. That's my big goal, is 100,000 hands. I also have some other big goals that I don't wish to share with you because I'm not ready to. One thing that I want you to think about is that macro has to be unwavering. That macro has to be, this is happening. This is the goal. I know what I want. I know what is kind of a non-negotiable in my big picture. That's for me to know today. And I want you to do the same. That macro, that big dream, I want you to hold on tight to that, and I want you to preserve it because you need to be unwavering towards it. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by being unwavering towards the macro. If you're driving on a highway and you're heading from one side of the country to the other, I'm starting in Georgia and I'm ending in Washington State. That macro is unwavering. We are going to Washington State, okay? Now the micro is where you debate. The micro is where you pivot. Now, in our analogy of saying I'm going from Georgia to Washington State, you don't necessarily need to die on the hill that you take Highway 40 all the way there. That's not the important thing. The important thing is you get to Washington. And if you want to veer out of the way and go to Michigan and spend some time with family and relax for a little bit, great. Perfect. Get it. As long as we're staying on track to get to Washington. If you start going down a highway and you realize there's really bad construction, it's okay to get off that highway and change gears where you're like, this is taking too long. This isn't working for us. We have to shift. So that micro can be debated. It can be pivoted away from. It can be changed. The macro has to stay. And that could be very vague. It could be a feeling that you want to experience. It could be a lifestyle you'd like to have. It could be generally a legacy you'd like to live, whether within your family and your community, in the world, etc. But that macro has to be unwavering. And the micro is where you can pivot, is where you can make those changes. With that, you have to be very precise about the people that you surround yourself with. And this is not one of those, you are a representation of the 5 people you surround yourself with, which true. What I am saying is that within your team, within the people that are hired to support you, to be there for you, you need to be so crystal clear about how they influence that pursuit. And what I mean by that is, yes men have to be on your team. And a lot of people are going to fight me on this. They're going to say, yes men are bad for your business because they're just going to say yes to everything that you want. You need people who are going to push back against you. True. But you need people who are saying, got it, I'm on it, let's go. Or I understand the mission, I'm getting to work. Those yes men are at the bottom of your org chart. Those are interns, those are entry-level positions, those are people who maybe haven't been in the game long enough to have an opinion about where you're going and who is part of your journey. So when you're looking at an org chart, anything below a certain role needs to be yes men. And the people who kind of challenge below their weight, it's going to cause tension and agitation. And then on the top, anything above a certain line, let's say C-suites, VPs, management, those have to be challengers. And that doesn't mean that they need to be like contrarian or pushing back against everything or hard to work with or non-collaborative. It is, however, that they need to have a certain level of skill and a certain level of confidence to say, I foresee an issue ahead. I've driven this highway a million times. There's always construction on Tuesdays. Challengers live at the top. Yes men live at the bottom. Now, at the end of the day, you're the founder. You're probably the CEO, but you and the CEO, if you have one of those, are the ones who make that final call. So the challengers are accepted and you thank them and you listen to them. You are allowed to be wrong with them, but you still make the call at the end of the day. You still call the shots at the end of the day where you can say, I'm so appreciative for this conversation. I do want to see how things work in my way, but please keep bringing these to me. Please keep pushing back. When you have yes men at the top, they will harbor resentment. They won't be sharing with you their frustrations. They won't be sharing what they view as problems in the organization. There is no space for a yes man who is sitting close to you, and there is no space for a challenger at the bottom. And you really want to think about your org chart in this way. The last thing I'm going to say about being delusional is that at some point in time, you're going to have to pivot. And that does not necessarily mean you have to pivot the macro, but you have to always be honest with yourself. Way too many founders become too addicted to that macro end goal that they do not move ever, even when the house is on fire. And I've done this myself. I experienced this with Dial Zero. I have a future episode coming out about one of the biggest mistakes I made with Dial Zero this year and why I did not realize the house was on fire. And it's because you become too addicted to that end goal. If the house is on fire, you get out of the house. You figure out an exit plan. You re-strategize. You don't become too addicted to the end goal that you have absolutely no capacity to see that there are other places for you to play in. And with all of this said, the point of being delusional is to say, what if I took up space? What if I just tried? And what if I had something that felt playful and meaningful? It's kind of my long-winded version of start with why, because Simon Sinek did say it best. If you cannot find a why in your business, it's going to be very hard for you to give a shit about your marketing. It's going to be very hard for you to care about getting better at your job. It's going to be very hard for you to take feedback, because if you cannot handle criticism in your business, you may not love the result enough. And my result is that women get paid. So if someone says to me, hey, Ashli, I think we have a better way of doing things, I'm going to listen, because I am not in this business to feed my ego. And I'm not in this business to make me feel cool or baller or even rich. I am in this business to be of service. And I'm in this business because I love this fucking job so much. And when you think about your end goal as something that you care about, you will be unwavering. You will be able to think big. You will be able to see a world that you're working in this space for 5-10 years, because how fun to be doing that. And so if you cannot see that, the business that you're operating in might fund the thing you want to do. And what I mean by that is that if you're like, I don't want to be doing this, I want to write children's books. I don't want to be doing this, I want to act. I don't want to be doing this, I want to paint. If you have something else that you really want to do, then the business you're in can fund that. You do have to be super passionate about the business, but that doesn't mean that the business you're in now has to be your passion. It can simply be a money and revenue driver where you save some of that in order to be able to fund that big delusional dream that you do have. Because I would argue everybody has one. And if you're like, I don't have one, I simply want to stay stay at home with my kids, or I don't want to, I just want to travel the world. Tell me why that isn't something delusional or that there isn't something there. There has to be something super dreamy that would just be incredible in those lifestyle choices. And you can have an empire. You can be ambitious. You can love your job, and you can have people who want the mission that you have to come to fruition. And that is what we're building towards here at the Doers. I talk about this often in our membership. It's $197 a month. You have me on speed dial. We're actually putting into place a money back guarantee that if you do not feel like you have me in your back corner, you get your money back, because I am there for you 24/7 inside of the Doers Club. We also have the Doers Library at $97 a month with hundreds of resources for you to just copy and paste your business. That way everything is so much easier. I want you to understand that you don't have to outsource everything in your business. That's why our tagline is, it's not hard, it's new. Is because a lot of the things that feel hard in business are just new to you, and you can figure them out. And we made it easy for you to figure it out so you can save your money and keep it for yourself, or use it to grow this business. So access to that library is $97 a month. You do get access to the library as a member of the club, where we have our Slack channel. And then finally, we have our free tier of the Doers, Access Pass. And if you are a free member of the Doers, please use that intake form, because we're going to be doing office hours starting soon on the podcast, so that you can write in your question and I will give you tailored, specific advice. I'm here for you. I care about you. Join me in being excited about the future of the Doers world. Share this with your friends, because I'll tell you what, we have something we are working so hard on behind the scenes and have been for a while, and it's very expensive. And if you could find people who want to be in this space, who want to be in the Doers, that money does not come to Ashli Pollard. I have my money coming from elsewhere, and all of the money in the Doers comes back to the Doers. So if you want to invite people into this space, please do. Every single person who joins helps every other person who joins just by the way that they join, and that money can be used to filter back into the community. That's what I want to leave you with. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for the people who reached out to me this summer wondering if I was okay. The answer is no, and I'm fine. Life goes on. People are fighting battles you have no idea about, and I've had a really, really hard year and summer personally, not in business. Personally. And I am not okay, and I will be okay. And I love my work for this reason, because it is a catalyst for me to find a way forward, to give back, to be in service. Because when I'm hurting, I want to be in service to others. I want to be giving to others. It's where I find my humanity, and it's where I find my strength. And so the Doers is my space to really do that. And empowering women in this way is my way to do that. And so I'm just so grateful that I have this space of women who will openly receive the help that we're giving and who have seen such massive results from it. Stay tuned, and I will see you on the next episode of The Unfiltered Entrepreneur. Welcome back.